Dear Diary, we are coming to the end of a tough set of fixtures in the Premier League and are about to take on Chelsea off the back of a plucky 2-1 defeat against Man City at the Etihad. That means we have lost 3 straight going into that game, but hopefully things will improve with what we have after that. Unfortunately, we need lots of points from those games because we have now fallen off the place for a European spot a little bit. Tactically, we adjusted a few things prior to that City game, and it kept things respectable. Next gen winner El Bloshy is now a DLP on support, and we are regrouping instead of counter-pressing as well. We will see if those changes help us get on the right track to end the season, and hopefully get back in the hunt for Europe. Until next time. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 65 of FMOE here with Cardiff City on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well, and coming up today we come to the end of a tough little patch fixture wise in the Premier League. First off, we end it as we do host Chelsea, a team that we did grab a draw away from home against at Stamford Bridge earlier this season. We will take on Leeds away from home off camera and come back as we do host Brighton. So if you are looking forward to those 2 games in today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and have been enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but we have only played that 1 game, as you saw in the intro, a 2-1 loss to Manchester City, which wasn't the worst performance since those 2 that we did play in yesterday's episode. If you missed that one, we took on Liverpool and Man United away from home. I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Obviously, with those sort of teams that we did have to play away from home, we come into this upcoming clash against Chelsea in a little bit of a rough patch of form, and it does mean now, in terms of the Premier League table, I think that 8th might still be enough to get a European spot, albeit FA Cup final, there could be a bit of an upset for a team who does make their way into that, but also quite a few teams doing well in the Champions League, so I think it might extend down that the top 8 teams do make their way into Europe. Hopefully that will be the case. There's certainly still something to play for, but we are now 5 points behind Stoke in 9th place, and a further point further up to Man United, who do have a much kinder run home than both us and Stoke City do have. But unfortunately, that most recent run of fixtures expectedly has led to us just dropping down that table a little bit, but hopefully off the back of this first game in today's episode, we can start to pick up some more points, and that could be quite useful, because if we have a look at Stoke City's upcoming schedule, they hit a similar run that we just had as they take on United, Arsenal and City in 3 straight fixtures. That could be our chance to try and catch those guys up off the back of taking on a similar run ourselves. But first off today, we do take on Chelsea, as I said, a team that we did get a draw against earlier this season at Stamford Bridge. Briefly held a 1-0 lead there late as well, thanks to a header from Charlie Higgins, but these days they are in 5th on the table, looking fairly solid to be entering European football again next season, and still Simone Inzaghi is in charge, playing a 5-3-2, and they still have the same sort of players who were there earlier this season. In terms of us, just one slight injury concern we do have here at the moment. Hyde, a damaged kneecap, albeit is quite close to returning, but at least should be fit for that one. Is not fit for this first one, as we do take on Chelsea, so it does mean that one of our new centre-backs is going to have to start alongside Mark McGuinness, but apart from that, we will be at full strength, and we'll come back shortly with the team sheets as we hopefully put pay to this bad run of form as we host Chelsea. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. As mentioned, we have put someone in place of Hyde with that injury. Surveyor makes his way into the starting 11, and Hayati Ertunk is on the bench. But apart from that, we are at full strength, albeit Tomic is still suspended. Ziani also on the bench there with Chelsea. They look quite strong, but hopefully we can pick up some points for the first time in a while here at home. And after surviving the first 20 minutes of this game, we do eventually get shown our first highlight in this one, and Goodmanson there did have the ball, but a bit of a loose touch from him there, or a pass, and Chelsea here in the light outfit today start to make some headway down this left-hand side. Dominguez briefly got it back. Lukaku puts that top right corner, but surely he's offside there. That looked far too good to be true. Otherwise, Dominguez with an absolute howler that did lead to that ball pulling into the mixer there from Reguilon, but thankfully indeed he was offside, so that goal to Lukaku will not stand. We'll just see how far offside he was. Actually, not as far as I thought, but he is a good stride offside, so thankfully it does remain 0-0. And a further 20 minutes on, we get our next highlight in this one, and yet again Chelsea are on the attack. It's been a very quiet game so far. Goodmanson has just recently picked up a yellow card. Lukaku, great chance, thumps that one off the woodwork, and thankfully we do just head that one away. El Bloshy will try and get us here going on the counter-attack. Can't quite do it, but despite the highlights that you have seen, in terms of stats, we've actually looked a better team in terms of shots, but none on target from either team yet. Here's a free kick to Chelsea. Thankfully, Vayam heads that one away, but now Lukaku has the ball inside the box. That's a good chance there for Kai Havertz, but that one does come off the post, and that will mean that we do go into the shed still locked up at 0-0. All the highlights in favour of Chelsea, but as I was trying to explain before, when my tongue got a bit twisted, we've had twice as many shots as them, so not playing as badly as those highlights might suggest, but we are going to make some changes here at half-time, as Ben Hardy does just have a little injury comment on the right-hand side before we did go out to this bigger sort of view that we do have there now. So Perry Ing will come on for Ben Hardy in this one, as well as Dujon Sterling for Goodmanson off the back of him picking up a late yellow card, but that will do it for our substitutions here at half-time. Not doing that badly, but hopefully a few more highlights here in the second half, as we are still locked up at 0-0. And it looks like we're getting a highlight every 20 minutes in this game at the moment, because we are about to have a free kick. This time it might be in our favour. Vayam will take this one, plays it there to Sterling, gets it back, and now switches it out to the right-hand side to Perry Ing. But to be fair, a draw in this game would not be a bad result off the back of our most recent run. We just keep possession there, and Perry Ing hopefully can find Dominguez in space here on the edge of the box. He goes down from a tackle from Malato. This could be a huge chance for us to take the lead and hopefully ensure that we get something out of this game with only a half hour left. We're waiting for VAR, and the penalty has been awarded, and Facundo Farias with a chance here to put us in front against Chelsea at home. He steps up to the spot. It's an average penalty. Oh, he's had a couple of those so far this season. Maybe we need to take him off them. That is not what we wanted to see. We do still have a corner though, so hopefully something will come from this. But that could be a costly miss/save there from Mendy, as it is still 0-0. Bit of aerial ping pong off the back of that corner. Dominguez starts to make his way forward again, but Bentancur will take that one out. It will go for a throw-in, a missed penalty. Not what you need against a team like Chelsea. And off the back of that, he can come off for Ruben Colwill. And also, Bayam only going okay on a 6.3. Ertung will come on for him with just under a half hour left. Still 0-0 off the back of that missed penalty. And only a few minutes off the back of that penalty miss, we are now down the other end for a Chelsea corner, which McGuinness will head away. Now Naby Keita will play that one back to Reguilon. Interesting to see he these days is at Chelsea. Kante plays that one out for Mazrahi. Just jogs through our defence. Thankfully that shot though was very weak, and Mexado can make a save. So it remains 0-0 with 20 left. And just about into the last 15 minutes of this one, I think it is time for us to make our last substitution. We have Dominguez only on a 6.5 out there. El Bloshy down to a red heart, but is a bit better than our bench option in Joe Ralls. I do think there's a significant drop-off when we bring him on in that position. So instead, Mikhail Cech will come on the field for the later stages of this one, still locked up at 0-0. And inside the last 10 minutes of this one, there is a free kick here to Chelsea. That one does go behind where I thought it would go for a little bit, but they head that down for a Kanji. Blazers that one over the bar. So it is still 0-0 here as we are about to enter the last couple of minutes of this one. And we might just play things safe here and try and get a draw out of this game. I'll actually change things a little bit actually and switch around those roles to what they were at the start of the season for our two defensive midfielders to see if we can get anything going late. Thankfully, Chelsea, no shots on target. We've had a couple, obviously. Big chance from the penalty. And those are going to be, in the end, a couple of drop points, albeit a better performance as we do get something out of that game compared to the last three. But we certainly had a big chance to take out a win there with that penalty to Facundo Farias, but Mendy did make a good save, albeit wasn't the best penalty, I think it's fair to say, not quite aimed for that bottom left corner, but still not bad, back on track somewhat there with a point at home against Chelsea. Apparently we're not scoring goals, even though we've scored 3 in our last 5 games, actually 4, which isn't too bad, I would say, just the fact we are playing some quite tough teams in and around that. And in terms of the Premier League table, it hasn't done too much yet, with Stoke still yet to play on this match day, and Man United picking up a draw at home against West Ham. But not a bad performance there, but we certainly could have done better with that missed penalty. Getting a point from Chelsea at home. We'll come back shortly, show you guys the highlights as we take on Leeds away from home before we come back to Cardiff to host Brighton. And here are the highlights from the game that we did play in between the two. In today's episodes, we did travel away to take on Leeds United, and early in the second half, we grabbed the only goal. Quezada plays that over the top, and Facundo Farias makes up for that missed penalty against Chelsea, puts that one away, and we escape with a 1-0 win, our first win since before those tough 4 games that we did have. So thankfully, we pick up 3 points in a game, which otherwise could have made that race for European football even more open, as Leeds were 10th going into that one, and we were in 9th, but thankfully Facundo Farias makes sure that we do grab all 3 points. So what that does for the Premier League table, we have somewhat closed the gap now, just 3 points behind Stoke and 4 behind Manchester United with a game in hand. So if we can win this one against Brighton, that will certainly condense things in that race for 7th. But as I said, I still think there might be a chance that even 8th in the Premier League this season might get some European football for the next one. But a little bit of news as well that has come up since that first game of today's episode. First off, Bournemouth have sacked their manager, and we are wanted by them. They are currently, though, in the relegation zone all the way down in 19th. I don't think that is a job that we want, and we told the media as such. So hopefully that interest will disappear quite quickly, unlike earlier with the Fulham one, where we did string them along a bit earlier this week. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we might have an issue in terms of that potential 8 spots going to Europe, and that is because there has been an upset in the semi-finals of the FA Cup, as somehow Everton have found a way to get past Chelsea in the semi-finals of that competition, albeit not too surprising, I suppose, considering that we have done quite well against them this season, and they will take on Manchester City in the final. So hopefully Manchester City do win that one, because then that would probably mean more European spots that would go to teams in the Premier League this season, and that would help us out. Definitely do not want blimmin' Everton ending up in Europe when they probably will come back to the Premier League for next season, because those guys currently are in second in the Championship, albeit quite a way behind the team currently on top, who are Watford, who have already guaranteed promotion as champions back up to the Premier League. So that could just change things a little bit in terms of us potentially qualifying for Europe for next season. But to counter that a little bit, if we have an update on the Champions League, there are 3 English teams in the semi-finals of this competition. So as long as Man City do win the FA Cup and one of these English teams does win the Champions League final, I'm hopeful that might mean that we do get down to 8th place, getting a European spot this season, and hopefully by the end of the season we can overtake Stoke and maybe even Manchester United to jump back up into some European football places. But we are about to take part in the second game of today's episode. We take on Brighton, a team who we did pick up a 2-1 win against earlier this season, coming from behind off the back of an early Emile Smith-Rowe goal. So hopefully at home here we can pick up 3 points, and that should get us right back in the hunt for that European football that these days we are after for next season. These days Brendan Rodgers is in charge there. Still got the likes of Lewis Dunk, Alexis McAllister and Moises Caicedo there at the club, as well of course as that centre back who they did pinch off us on January transfer deadline day, but they are currently in the lower to mid table here in the Premier League. So hopefully at home we can continue our winning ways off the back of that previous one away against Leeds United, and we do have some players returning from both injury and suspension onto the bench for this one, so a bit stronger than we were for that first game of today's episode. So hopefully that means that we can pick up all 3 points, and we'll come back shortly with the team sheets as we take on Brighton from Cardiff City Stadium. And here are the team sheets for the second game of today's episode in terms of us exactly the same as we were starting wise for that first game, but Erhog Hyde back from injury, only recommended for 45 minutes. So he is on the bench, as is Renato Tomic after that suspension off the back of that filthy tackle against Liverpool in yesterday's episode. There were Brighton, interesting to see that they're signing from us on deadline day, the one that we were going after, the Chilean centre-back, only on the bench, but hopefully we can pick up another win here in the Premier League. And a very early highlight in this one, only 3 minutes into the game, and it was Emile Smith-Rowe there on the ball for Brighton. They are in the red today. They try and play a ball over the top, but thankfully Goodmanson does win that one. We play one over here for Marco Brun. Don't quite get it, but El Bloshy tidies things up, plays this over for Dominguez, squares it for Marco Brun, and he will score his 18th goal of the season, and that is exactly the start that we were after. We get on the scoreboard nice and early for the first time in a little while, and hopefully we can put the foot down a little bit, unlike what we have been doing in recent games. That is a good counter-attacking goal. Dominguez with the assist, and we go 1-0 up nice and early. And only 5 minutes off the back of that opening goal, it is Ines Sully here with the ball down our left-hand side, plays that back in for El Bloshy, quite instrumental in that opening goal, and Quezada will ping this one out to Dominguez on that right-hand side, bit of a 1-2 there between him and Hardy. Farias, lovely ball that for Marco Brun, and I think he might have his second goal of the game inside the first 10 minutes, and this has been a dream start for us as long as he was onside, and indeed he was. I thought he looked pretty in line there, and that is a perfect start. 2-0 inside 10 minutes, yet again some lovely play, good ball there from Facundo Farias, and Brun gets an early double, and already we are 2-0 up here against Brighton, and might be right back in the hunt for that European football. And 20 minutes off the back of that second goal, no highlights since then. So far it's been a very good first half, but El Bloshy, who has been great so far, even though he's on a 6.7 orange injury, I think being 2-0 up, we might play things safe in regards to the rest of the season and take him off with that potential injury. Hopefully not too serious, but Joe Ralls will come on for him, still with a 2-0 lead. And that is half time in this one. We are 2-0 up and very happy with how that first half went. 2 highlights inside the first 10 minutes for 2 goals to Marco Brun. Slightly concerning that El Bloshy did pick up an orange injury, but since then we have looked pretty solid, and hopefully we continue this in the second half and can hold on to our 2-goal cushion. Happy with how things are going, so no more changes needed at half time, and we'll get things back underway and hopefully hold on to pick up 3 more points. And only a few minutes into the second half, Goodmanson, who is playing quite well, has picked up an early yellow card. With us being 2 goals up, I think it might be a safe option here to take him off. And also Erhog Hyde does need some game time coming back from injury, and Bayham can play left back. Some of our other left back options off the bench lately have not been too great. We'll give Bayham a run there for these last 40 minutes potentially at left back. That's one more sub used, still 2-0 up. And very shortly off the back of that substitution, it is now us on the attack, but unfortunately Sully gets robbed there by Akumu, and it is Brighton here, albeit they have to turn around, but they were on the counter-attack briefly, and Tapia plays that one over the top for their right winger. He goes up against Bayham, does a pretty average effort, does our defender, puts it in for Alexi McAllister, heads that home, and Brighton are right back in this one early in the second half, and hopefully we don't drop more points at home like we did against West Ham. I'm thinking about a little while ago. It was actually Joe Ralls there with some pretty average defensive work, but Brighton back in this one, 2-1. And just shy of the hour mark, I think we're going to make a few more substitutions here. Not too convinced about Ola VM at left backs. With that in mind, I think we might bring on Dujon Sterling for him. And also Quezada has picked up a yellow card, so we're going to bring on Andy Rinomota, the old partnership of him and Ralls in the midfield. That's 4 of our subs used off the back of us, going 2-1 down. And only a few minutes off the back of those substitutions, we do have a free kick here, albeit deep inside our own half. Dujon Sterling starts to try and get something going down this left-hand side. One more goal here would be very calming, but they sort of trip over each other there, do 2 of our players, and Smith-Rowe there gets the ball back for Brighton, and they start to get on the attack yet again. This is certainly turned off the back of that goal that they did get back early in the second half, but hopefully we can hold on here. But Smith-Rowe now on the edge of the box. Good tackle that from Rinomota, and McGuinness will play that one back for Mexado. Sterling clears it away, but unfortunately our left winger there, I think that might have been Sully, was looking for that ball a bit deeper. Brighton get in behind, and it's their right winger who, off the back of getting an assist for the first goal, puts that away from the ball from Caicedo, and we have blown a 2-0 lead again here at home, and this is starting to become a bit worrying in our chase for European football. We did it before our episode a little while ago against West Ham, where they scored 2 late goals. This time Brighton getting them earlier, and with still 24 minutes left, it is now all square at 2-2. And 10 minutes off the back of Brighton's equaliser, Dominguez here with a free kick, nearly picked out the top left corner there, but Sanchez in goal pulls off a very good save to keep it at 2-2. We don't score many of those direct free kicks, so maybe something that we do need to work on, albeit not helped by our Bloshy being off the field, and no one gets their head on the end of the corner, albeit Dominguez will tidy that up hardy on the front foot, but that is that highlight over, just over 10 minutes left, and still 2-2. And we are inside injury time in this one. We're going to try and throw a bit more at these guys late, but unfortunately it is looking like, despite that really good opening 10 minutes, we have slackened off a bit since then, and it does indeed appear like we have dropped points again at home from a winning position. It's 2-2 against Brighton, and that one is really frustrating off the back of a really good start, maybe taking off the likes of our Bloshy, albeit that was kind of due to injury. Goodmanson, that early yellow card, could have proved costly because they did go to us down their right-hand side from there, and that winger, with a goal and an assist, did have quite a good second half, so unfortunately might have stuffed up my substitutions there, albeit if we did leave Goodmanson out there, might have had to have him easing off tackles, so might not have made much of a difference anyway, but we certainly have bottled that one a little bit with a good chance there for us to close the gap on both Manchester United and Stoke City, still in 9th place, albeit only 2 points behind Stoke now, so in theory, if we can keep that gap, that might make that last day of the season when we do take those guys on very, very interesting, but certainly more drop points there. A bit of a theme from today's episode as Brighton come from behind to grab a 2-2 draw. And back in the inbox off the back of those games in today's episode, both of the ones that we showed you, games that I think in the end we should have actually got 6 points out of, but unfortunately a missed penalty and then just bottling things in that second half against Brighton does mean that we have dropped a few points, and as I said, add that to that result against West Ham a little while ago where they did score 2 goals very, very late, and those drop points at home starting to get a little bit frustrating with those draws, albeit could certainly be a lot worse, but as I said, we're not that far behind Stoke City now on the Premier League table, and as mentioned earlier, with their run home, if we just move my face out of the way here briefly so we can show you guys this, you can see coming up next, Man United, Arsenal and Man City, then Bournemouth and us. Bournemouth away from home, that could be quite tricky, and of course we did build up a really good record against Stoke City in the Championship last season, even though they did hold us to a draw at our home ground earlier this season, but there is a good chance for us there to get on the front foot for what potentially might be that final European spot for the end of this Premier League season. And also just a quick update on that potential injury to Khalid El-Bloshy. Thankfully, playing it safe worked, albeit maybe if we left him on, we would have grabbed all 3 points, but just a bruised knee. He is out for 1 to 2 days, so should be fine for our next game, which is against Tottenham Hotspur. That might be a game away from home that we don't expect to make any ground on Stoke City in, but certainly right back in the hunt, hopefully, to grab a European spot in the last few matches of the Premier League season. But that will do it for today's episode. Unfortunately, as I said, dropped a few points there where we potentially should not have, but if you enjoyed that one, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and have been enjoying this series here on the channel, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. Tomorrow we are going to come back to end the week and finish this season in the Premier League. We will play the last 2 games, I think, unless something quite interesting does happen before then. So again, I better get my face cam out of the way, but Tottenham and Brentford we will play off camera. I'd say the Brentford game might be the one that we're expected to win, albeit those guys are currently 4-0 up after the first leg of a Conference League semi-final, despite the fact that they currently are just outside of the relegation zone. But we're going to show you guys Crystal Palace at home and that big potential game, which could set up one of us going into European football for next season as we take on Stoke City away from home, and from there we will go forward a little bit, do the end of season review, and just make sure that we are or are not in European football if we do end up in that 8th place, depending on what does happen in the last stages of both the Champions League and the FA Cup. But we'll come back tomorrow and wrap up this season here at Cardiff City, our first one in the Premier League, and see if we can get some European football for next year. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.